Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tumeva Madhacha Pida Tvameva Tumeva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tumeva Vidya Dravinam Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma. Om Amriteshwari Nama. We'll begin with a short meditation, so kindly sit straight and just make sure your vertebral column, spinal column is erect. Slowly close your eyes. Try to focus your awareness on your breathing. Breathing normally, but with full awareness of each and every inhalation and exhalation that occurs through your body. Just watch your body as an instrument, like a flute, through which the air passes. As you become more and more aware of each and every breath, feel the relaxation also that ensues along with the awareness. You feel completely relaxed. And empty your mind and just be here. And now we'll chant Om 3 times. And as we chant Om, imagine the sound of Om not to arise from your throat but from your navel area. And visualize the sound traveling along your spine, going upwards towards the head and above into the atmosphere, cleansing the body, the mind, and the atmosphere around you. Now kindly take a deep breath. Of feeling the silence. Slowly bring your awareness back to your breath. feeling each and every inhalation and exhalation. And now as you breathe in, chant the mantra, the sound Ma, silently along with your in-breath. And when you breathe out, chant Om. So Ma when you breathe in, and Om when you breathe out. Ma is a representation of divine love, and Om of divine light, and you need not focus on this right now. Just feel the vibrations of love and light in your heart. So chant both these mantras in synchronization with your breath. Ma when you breathe in, and Om when you breathe out, like this. Ma. And hold your breath just for a few seconds. Don't hold it too long. Then when you breathe out, chant Om. Ma. Om. Ma. Om. And continue like this for some time. slowly and slowly the reverberations of Ma and Om become more and more subtle. You can just feel the vibrations of Ma and Om. As the light and love represented by Ma and Om fills your heart, imagine you're also filled with that divine love and light, and feel your heart expanding just like a fully blossomed flower. Now feel the love and light flowing from your heart to all the beings in this world, just like the rays of the sun. And as the light falls on each and every being, imagine they also become more loving, more peaceful, more blissful and more compassionate. And while imagining so, we'll chant the Loka Samasta prayer 9 times. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. 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 Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Dhyayamo Dhvlavagundhanavatim Tejo Mayim Naishtikim Snigdha Pangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmidashri Mukhim Valsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shamangi Madhusekta Sutim Amritanandatmikam Ishwarim. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Vadiyandam Vande Guru Parambaram Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Logashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishwarau Gururagmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Om Amriteshwariyai Namaha. Om Amriteshwariyai Namaha. Om Amriteshwariyai Namaha. Today I'm fortunate enough to have this broadcast from Chicago ashram, and my pranams to all of you. This has been a enunciation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the text. And just to give some introduction, because I have almost gone about 1/4 or more than 1/5, I'll say, right, of that text. And so I don't, in one sense, it doesn't matter where you begin, because the text speaks about basically the Vedantic truths. And when we hear about Srimad Bhagavatam, usually the first reaction that we hear is because it's a Purana, it's a story. So we think that it is so many stories, and so some of you must be expecting to hear stories. But in effect, through many of these stories of they said Lord Krishna, or the 9 of the avatars of Lord Vishnu, what is enunciated here is the Vedantic truths. What is given through Upanishads, what is given through the Vedas. And many people think that because these are stories, I don't have to listen to it that carefully. But just like what Amma does, and Amma speaks very simply. And it is so simple that we think, oh, this is so simple. But what she talks is Vedantic truths. And when we slowly think about it and keep thinking, then we realize that whatever Amma says is also from the Upanishads only. But she puts it in such a form that is very easily available to us, as well as understandable to us. Because if you start reading the Vedas after some time, you get bored, especially if you start reading the Upanishads. What happens is they say that you are Brahman, I am also Brahman, so we are all Brahman, everything is pervaded by Brahman. And after some time you ask this question, what does that mean? So they are putting here these simple truths, as Amma once said, if you really want to know these 4 Vedantic Upanishadic statements, that is Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, and Sarvam Khalidam Idam Brahma. That is so all this, that is Tattvamasi, that you are that, Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman, and Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, that is everything is Brahma. And so if you understand, it's just simple. But that understanding is very profound, and it cannot be just an intellectual understanding. It has to be an experiential knowledge. Just like the difference between a Pandit, Sanskrit Pandit can also say all these things, but when Amma says all these truths, it's totally different because it's coming from her own experience and not, it's a experiential knowledge and it's not an intellectual knowledge. So here, in the same manner, this, if you look at what Bhagavatam is the dialogue, as like every scripture. If you look at all the Sanatana Dharma scriptures, it's a dialogue between the guru and the disciple, the shishya. And the shishya is asking, the disciple is asking questions, and the guru is answering the disciple about his question. And here what happens is, as some of you already know this story, Maharaja Parikshit, who was the grandson of Arjuna, was cursed by one of the rishis' son, saying that he will die within 7 days, being bitten by one of the the most poisonous serpents known as Takshaka. And so he wants to escape from death. So he doesn't know what to do. So finally what he takes the refuge in the sages. So he goes to the banks of Ganga, and there is a place called Naimishyaranya, and he sits there, and when he sits there, the great sage Shuka, who is the son of Vedavyasa, the great sage Vedavyasa, comes there. So Shuka, who has received this knowledge from Vedavyasa, and actually Vedavyasa wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam, and as also some of you know the story behind that, why Vedavyasa wrote it, because as after Vedavyasa codified all the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur and Atharva Veda, and he was not satisfied. And one day he was sitting there, and as he was sitting there, Lord Narada, the great sage Narada, comes there and asks him, why are you so sad? You are a jnani, right? You are self-realized, but you still seem to be a little bit sad. So Vedavyasa told him that, look, I have done all these things. And what do people do? Either they, I wrote also the Puranas, right? The Mahabharata. And so I wrote the Puranas. And so what happens to the Vedas is people say that, oh, it's so tough. And it says so many steps. And it has like 4 Vedas. So it's so much, it is voluminous. So I cannot read it. And the Puranas, what happens? Oh, they say, oh, if you keep the Mahabharata in your home, then there will be a war between the family members. So you should never keep Mahabharata in your home. Throw it out. So nobody is getting any benefit out of all these things. So he says, oh Lord Narada, sage Narada, you came at the right moment. So I am having this confusion as to what I should do. So then sage Narada says, okay, I understand your dilemma. So you write Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the stories of Lord Vishnu, Lord Sri Krishna, and the devotees. And through that enunciate all these principles. So that's how Vedavyasa starts writing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he gave it to his son Sri Shuka, who is narrating it now to Parikshit. And Parikshit is the most befitting disciple. Why? Because he knows he has only 7 days to die. After the 7th day, he will die. And his death is certain, being bitten by this serpent. So he is fully giving all his attention to the narration by Sri Shuka. And Sri Shuka is narrating to him the Srimad Bhagavatam as told to him by his father Vedavyasa. And so what happens is The Srimad Bhagavatam contains about 18,000 verses and 335 chapters, and it consists of 12 subdivisions or cantos, you can say that. And so it's a collection of stories of not only the Lord but also of the devotees of the Lord. So here what we were discussing, that's why I'm saying earlier on, it does not matter what we were discussing earlier, but here we were talking about the great bhakta, devotee, Prahlada. You must have heard about Prahlada. And the stories of Prahlada. But here, as we see that Prahlada is not only the stories are being told about Prahlada, but if you go into the details, it talks about what Prahlada talks about and how he deals with his father. And his father was known as Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu was a Rakshasa or a demon. And he was born in the demon clan. So Prahlada was also born in the demon clan. And what happened was, just to go back, Hiranyakashipu had a brother called Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyaksha, this was in the Satya Yuga, that is, if you look at the 4 ages, the first one is Satya Yuga, then Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and now we are in Kali Yuga. So Satya Yuga was the first one, then Treta Yuga is where Lord Rama was there, and then in Dwapara Yuga, Lord Sri Krishna was there, and now in Kali Yuga, Amma is there. So all these 4 yugas, when we take this and divide it, this is the broad division. And Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha they were characters who were living in the Satya Yuga. And one of the things what we have to understand here is these Puranas are extremely confusing. Because now we are talking about the story of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha who's living in the Satya Yuga. And Prahlada is the grandson of, Parikshit is the grandson of Arjuna, who was in the Dwapara Yuga. So there is no relationship of time. Why? Why do they do that? They are doing it purposely because to break that feeling of time. You have to go beyond the time. So they confuse you. Purposely it is being confused. And so then you start thinking for a moment, where did we start? And we started with the story of Parikshit, who is listening to Lord Shuka. And now he's talking about Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And so then it goes in different ways. And then you see Lord Vyasa himself coming in almost all the yugas. So how did Lord Vyasa write it? So Lord, we have to understand these are all characters which has been placed by the author. And perhaps in one sense, Lord, in the ancient times, the rishis did not patent anything. They didn't say that, I wrote the Rig Veda and I have patented it. Why? Because they wanted everybody to use it. And they did not even want to get that recognition as an individual. So what did they do? They just put some name. So maybe Vyasa was a character that all the rishis used. And when the rishis did all these things, they put a name called Vyasa because they themselves did not want to have anything associated with their own names. So what happened is, as we can see, there is always this confusion about timing, and if you look at the timings, it's always incorrect. So this is purposely created to confuse you, so that out of the confusion you get a shock, you wake up and ask this question, hey, what happened? And when? So then what happened? Your intellect is being challenged. And then you have to go beyond the intellect. Once your intellect is, you cannot think, and once you realize that this intellect is absolutely wrong, then you have to go beyond the intellect and go to the point which is known as faith. So you either have the choice to believe it or not to believe it. So this question comes, right? Did Lord Rama live? Or did Lord Krishna live? And why is the Puranas, the stories about all these people? And today, there are so many scientific proofs, but still, one cannot completely prove that Lord Rama was alive. We see the Setu, the bridge which was built from India, the southernmost tip of India, which is Rameshwaram, in Tamil Nadu, to Sri Lanka, which is Lanka at that time. And so we see that. And today, if we go to the Kurukshetra, where the great battle occurred, they say still we can feel the radioactive effects of the war that took place there. And in the southern part of, in the western part of Gujarat, where it's a sea, people have gone under the sea. Archaeologists have dug there and gone underwater, and they founded a city which was known as Dwaraka. So Dwaraka went underwater. That is also written in the Puranas, that in the end, when Lord Krishna left his body, his whole city went underwater. Still, there are proofs. If you want to believe, you can believe, or if you just don't want to believe, don't believe. But if you want to take the essential principles enunciated through these Puranas, you take it or leave it. So you can hear a nice story and go to sleep. That's what you want, if you want to. So that is also there. But one thing I will say is these stories are going to stick in your mind. It will never leave you. Because one day or the other, these stories will suddenly pop up in your mind as you listen, whether you are awake or asleep. Even through sleeping, then these stories will sweep into your soul and pierce your soul, and it will always be registered there. And so what happens is, you will remember these stories, and through these stories you will come to understand the essential principles which actually the rishis wanted you to hear and to practice. So as I was saying, so Shuka, Brahma Rishi, he was the son of Vyasa, who was giving this Srimad Bhagavatam in the gathering of the sages called Naimisharanya. So when we are talking about Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, they were actually, what happened was Hiranyaksha, as I said, they lived in Satyuga. And both of them, in their previous births, they were the gatekeepers of Lord Vishnu. And so what happened was, Jaya, they were known as Jaya and Vijaya. And one day, as they were standing in the gates, the Saptarishis came there to see Lord Vishnu. And they were instructed by Lord Vishnu that Lord Vishnu told them that I'm going to rest, so do not let anybody into my chamber. So they stood there, they would not allow the Saptarishis to go in. And what happened? So after some time waiting, they got so furious with Jaya and Vijaya and cursed him, saying that you will be born as Rakshasas or demons. Or you can be born as human beings. So the choice is yours. And so they said, what is the okay, so tell us what is the benefit of being born as human beings or born as Rakshasas, demons. So they said, if you are born as human beings, you will be devotees. And you will be devotees for ages together, many years. And then you will come back to as the gatekeepers of Lord Vishnu. But if you are demons, then you will become enemies of Lord Vishnu. And you will be fighting with Lord Vishnu, but your intensity of devotion will be so strong because you will be the enemy and you will be constantly thinking about Lord Vishnu, and within 3 births, just 3 births, you will be back. So what is your choice? So of course we know what is the choice. If we are given the choice, the three births, no, we don't want to go to suffer so many births. So they said, okay, we need only 3 births. And so that's how they were born as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha in the Satya Yuga. Then Ravana and Kumbhakarna, that was when in Lord Rama's time, that was in Treta Yuga. And finally as Shishupala and Dandavakra in the Dwapara, that is Lord Vishnu's time. And so here Hiranyakashipu, what he did was he did a lot of penance, and he wanted to make sure that he was invincible. Because there was always this fight between the devas, that is the gods, and the demons. So he wanted to conquer all the Devalokas, the world of the devas, including the Indra Loka, which was the world of Indra. So he went out to do his tapas, or penance, austerity, to please Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is the creator. So he went out to do the tapas. And so what happened at that time was, we can see that his wife got pregnant at that, he did not know at that time, and was pregnant with a child. And so we'll hear the story a little bit later about what happened to her. But out of the womb came Prahlada as his child. So imagine, his father was a demon and Prahlada came out, and Prahlada was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu right from a young age. And Prahlada was sent to the demon school, demon's kid school, nursery school. And he was taught all the formal education, how the demons go. So they were taught only 3 things. One is about artha, that is how to earn more wealth. And dharma means the dharma means their values according to the demons, not the real ones. So means, their dharma is you can kill devas anytime. So that is their dharma. Then the third one was kama, that is fulfilling one's desires. But they never talked about moksha, that is liberation. So these 3 were the subjects. And every time Prahlada would come on vacation, his father would be so loving to him, and Hiranyakashipu would take him and put him on his lap and ask this question, oh my dear son, what did you learn? So then Prahlada will give us a whole sermon about Lord Vishnu, who is the arch enemy of Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu used to get so angry, and every time he would call the teachers and say, what did you do with my child? Teach him what the demons teach. And I don't want him to know anything about Vishnu. But every time he came back, he still talked about Lord Vishnu only. And finally, so Hiranyakashipu gets so angry that he tries to do several things to Prahlada, and even to kill him. He makes him drink poison, and then he brings an elephant to and stamp on Prahlada's body, and then what happens is then he tries to throw him from a big mountain down into the terrain. And so what happens? None of these work. And as far as Prahlada is concerned, what happened? He thought that, oh, these were my special treatments my father gave me as gifts, because he loves me so much. He did not have even an iota of an inimical emotion towards his father. He was just so full of love for his father. So every time he did it, he would do all these things. And he would think that his father had so much of love, that's why his father is trying to do all these things. But what did his father want? Father wanted him to be killed. So this is where we are. And now what happened was, see, they send Prahlada back to school, and then the father calls the teachers, who are the sons of the great the guru of the demons, that is Shukracharya, and tells him, listen, you teach him what is correct. Don't put any of this Vishnu stuff inside his head. What are you doing? So when he goes back, what happens? They try to teach him all the other things, but nothing goes in. And not only that, what happens is when the teacher goes away, Prahlada starts giving sermons to the other Rakshasa children and turns their mind. So in this one where we are looking is Prahlada's sermon. And Prahlada's sermon, when we talk about it and when we are just listening to the story, it doesn't make much of a sense. But when you go deeper into the sermon, you will see that the pearls of Upanishads is there. So Prahlada says to the other children that wise men should begin the practice of devotional disciplines, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, from very boyhood. So he says the human birth is for devotional disciplines only. And you do not know how much long life lasts. It can just end anytime. Just as he says, all creatures having a body experience a measure of sorrow, happiness. So this happens without any effort. Why? Because of their prarabdha karma, the karma they have accumulated. But is this life just for exhausting those karmas, or just going through pain and pleasure? But there should be something more. So he says, a human being, a man means a woman also, a human being lives, say, 100 years at the most. And out of this span of life, it's not talking about a devotee, but an ordinary human being. Half of this life, almost like 50 years, is wasted by sleeping at night. And in the state of darkness, what happens? The body is like a dead body. So like 50 years you are dead. And then the remaining half, out of that is the remaining 50, the first 20 years are spent in ignorance of childhood and playfulness of the youth. And another 20 are spent with all the problems of old age, which reduces man to a helpless condition. So he's saying that chained to this domestic life and oblivious of the ultimate purpose of his existence, the rest of the man's life is wasted in pursuit of insatiable sexual enjoyments under the domination of the overwhelming infatuation. So he's saying, he says, how can a man renounce the intimacies he has been having with his dear wife in privacy and all these things? How can he renounce his sons, daughters, sisters, and his attractive furniture and household articles and his houses, cattle, servants? So he says that one should develop such kind of a renunciation. And so he says the householder whose senses are uncontrolled and whose cravings for pleasure is never satiated will have unbounded greed for wealth too, and he will indulge in stealing and misappropriating others' properties. So he says, so that's why he says, he tells the children, the Asura children, he says, you should shun association with such people from early life and seek the shelter of the primeval being, Lord Narayana. And he says that God is, you should not be afraid of God. And God is the most dearest. And he says that when the Lord is pleased with a devotee, what is there unattainable by him? Right? If you think about this, if you think what is unattainable by a devotee, you can attain anything in this world. Because why? Because the Lord is or you can say the Guru, in our case, Guru is the giver of everything. Both, you can say that is Bhukti Mukti Dada. That is, Bhukti means material wealth and Mukti is freedom. So the Guru will give both. It's not just one. And you can think about it, when you think about it, just one example that comes to my mind is when we are with Amma. When we travel with Amma, you look at us, we are staying in the best 5-star hotels. And people spend anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 for a night per room, right? To stay in these hotels. And when we go with Amma, of course we might be sleeping on the ground, and of course Amma sleeps on the ground also. She doesn't sleep on the bed. But what happens? Of course, when you lie down and start sleeping, then it doesn't matter whether it's 5-star, 4-star, or even no star. Sometimes you might see the stars, which is the best hotel, up in the clouds. So when we think about this, think about this. We go to the best hotels, and when we think about the different varieties of food that we get during Amma's programs, and all the other things, all the other pleasures that we are getting, Amma doesn't want for us not to have the dearth of anything. So we have different kitchens, Western Indian and North Indian, South Indian. You have doshas, you have coffee, Starbucks, and everything what you can think about it. And everything comes to you. You don't have to go. That is the best thing. If you go out into the world, you have to venture and seek out look at the app to find the best restaurant or a Starbucks near you. But even when you go to Amma's program, everything is there, right there. And so Amma gives everything. And finally she gives moksha also, liberation also. So that's why it's called bhukti and mukti. So in effect, they're saying that for a true devotee, everything, you'll get everything. All kinds of pleasures in life will come to you. But that doesn't mean that you should take it. But he's saying that what happens is, he's saying that for a devotee who is completely completely surrendered, that's what he's saying, who is completely surrendered to the Guru or the Lord, what is the need for him for all these things? Right? And he says he doesn't even want to have liberation. He doesn't even ask for moksha. Why? Because being with the Guru, being with the Lord is the highest and the most enjoyable experience you can get in this world. There's nothing much greater than that. So doing service. And when we think about this, why do we do seva to Amma? Do we get payment? Not only that, not only that we don't get paid. Secondly, we get scolded. And thirdly, people will come and tell us, what a bad job you're doing. You know nothing, let me show you. You might be cutting a vegetable. And they will tell you, you're not doing it right. So you get nothing in return. And not only that, you get scolded, you get a lot of, defamation, and also they scold you for everything that you do. And so why do you do it? Why do you do seva? Because in spite of all these things, the external things, if you look at it, when you do seva, your mind is calm. And from doing seva, you get a lot of bliss. That bliss comes from within. And the more you do, the more you get that bliss. That's why we do seva, right? That's why we do service to Amma or to the Lord. So he says that even such a devotee who does service does not even want moksha, liberation. So he says, I regard that the dedication of oneself to the Supreme Being is the real teaching. So what happens is, he says, alternatively, the Vedas do indeed deal with the three worldly values of morality, which is wealth, pleasure, and dharma, righteousness. But the Vedic teaching only will help to the extent that they make man to help him to surrender himself to the Supreme Being. So that's all the Vedic teachings will do. Why? Because you have these unfulfilled desires. So slowly the Vedas tell you, like suppose somebody doesn't get married, or somebody doesn't have job, you chant these mantras, or you go to the temple and do this puja, that puja. So you'll get a job. Now the next question is, when will I get married? Right? So then you do another mantra, you get married, and now I don't have children. And then you do another mantra. And finally, you'll come to a point where you'll ask for nothing. And so what will be there? So then you will ask for surrender. So that is the point that he's saying. So he says the doctrine of enlightenment, pure, pristine, and unadulterated by any compromise with worldly values, was imparted by Rishi Narayana, the friend of Nara, to the sage Narada. And so he says that it will shine in those who have the good fortune to be bathed in the dust of the sacred feet of those who have renounced worldly values absolutely and cling to the Lord with undistracted devotion. So if you have unwavered faith, you have renounced the worldly values. So what value you'll have? You'll have spiritual values instead of worldly values. So just take your case. Most of you have renounced so many of your worldly values. Why are you sitting here today? Why are you listening to my lecture? Is it so great? And I'm talking about, that Brahman and this thing and that thing. It's not interesting. As if you look at Star Wars or one of the latest movies, right? So, but in spite of that, why are you sitting here? Because your value has changed in life. You know that whatever you're going to do, if you go and sit in a bar right now, or if you go and watch a movie, it's not going to give you that much satisfaction as sitting here. And of course, that's why very few people are here also, because they don't understand the value of having these spiritual principles enunciated through their daily life. So he says that if you cling on to all the worldly values, then you're not going to get devotion. So you have to drop those worldly values and hold on to the spiritual values. And he says from that Narada, who had the realization of the Lord, I received this gospel of enlightenment in its theory and practice, which is the same as the nine-limbed doctrine of the practice of devotion to the Lord, which is the Bhagavata Dharma. So earlier he had talked about the nine-limbed doctrine, which is, what is it? This is, first one is Shravana. Shravana means listening to the stories of the Lord. Kirtana. Kirtana means singing the praises of the Lord. It could also mean singing bhajans. Smarana. Smarana means thinking about the Lord. Padasevana. This is a seva to the Lord. Archana. Archana means we're doing our daily archanas and doing pujas. And Vandana. Vandana means prostrations. Dasya. Dasya becoming a servant. And Sakhya means after you become a servant, then you become Sakhya. That is also having friendship with the Lord. And finally, Atma Nivedanam, which means completely surrendering to the Lord. So these are the nine limbed doctrine and the practice of that. So he's saying that it cannot also be that when you are still in the women's quarters before, so this is the practice of the nine-limbed doctrine. So now the Asura boys who were listening to him said, "O Prahlada, neither you nor we had any other instructors than the sons of the Guru of the Asuras." So which was Shukracharya. And they are our sole masters and custodians, and we have no access to anyone else. It cannot also be that when you were still in the women's quarters before coming here, you had contact with any great soul. Oh, gentle comrade, if there is any convincing explanation for this, please tell us and solve our puzzle. So the boys are perplexed and say, where did you get this knowledge from? Our teachers did not teach us. Nor did you have a chance to be with a great person, because you were always surrounded by demons, asuras. So where did you get this knowledge? So Prahlada says, this story, he says, being thus questioned by the children of the asuras, the great asura devotee, Prahlada, recalled to memory what had been taught by me, that is Narada, on the subject, and said with a smile to those curiously expectant children. And he said, when my father went to Mandara mountain to perform tapas, the devas thought, by the Lord's grace, this wretch is dead. As ants eat up a serpent, his own sins must have eaten him up. Indra and the other devas therefore made extensive preparations for a war on the asuras, the demons. And incapable of standing the massive attack of the huge army of the devas, the asuras ran away in all directions for fear of death. And afraid of their own lives, they fled in hot haste without any thought of the protection of their kith and kin or properties, their wives, children, relatives, friends, animals, household equipment, and the like. So they just dropped everything and ran away because the devas were attacking him. And in the flush of victory, the devas pillaged the royal palace, and Indra even took away my mother, the queen, as a captive. So what did they do? They took Hiranyakashipu's wife as a captive. And trembling and weeping like a frightened kuruvi bird. Kuruvi means a real small bird. She was being led off when by chance the great Devarshi Narada met her on the way. And Narada said to Indra, "O noble-minded Indra, release her. This woman is guiltless, and she is the devoted wife of another person. And it does not befit you to take her away as a captive." And Indra said, "She has within her the most formidable embryo from the Asura seed. I shall release her after it is born, and I have attained my objective, which is to kill the child." And Narada said, this child to be born is sinless. He will be a great soul and a devotee and a servant of the Lord. Equipped with the great power of the Spirit, you will not be able to destroy him. And Indra thereupon released my mother, honoring the words of the celestial Rishi. Out of his devotion to the Supreme Being, Indra circumambulated my mother, because I, the Lord's devotee, was within her, and then departed to his heavenly abode. So this is what happened. So when Indra was taking Prahlada's mother, who's the queen, and dragging her and taking her as a captive, then sage Narada came and told her, don't. And so Indra asked, why should I do that? I want to kill the child that she's carrying. So he says, no, this child will become a great devotee, which was Prahlada later. So the Rishi, that is Narada, then took my mother to his ashrama, comforted her, and said, dear daughter, until your husband returns, you may stay on here. So free from all fear, she stayed under Narada's protection till the return of the Lord of Asuras from his tapas. That devoted wife spent this period of her sojourn there, serving the Rishi with great devotion and praying in her heart for the health and the welfare of the child in the womb and for its delivery only when she wished. Having me also in his mind, the merciful Rishi of great spiritual power imparted to her instructions regarding the flawless path of devotion and enlightenment conveyed by it. My mother forgot those instructions, partly due to the lapse of a very long period of time, and partly due to her inherent incapacity to retain them. But owing to the blessings of that Rishi, those teachings have ever remained green in my memory. So you might think about this and ask this question, right? Do you remember one of Amma's words? That catch them when they are young. And when the children are young, you can easily give them knowledge. And this is what exactly Narada did. Sage Narada. He caught the Prahlada while he was even in the womb. And there is another version of this story that once her name was Kayadu, and she was asleep, and Narada was giving all these sermons, and somebody was saying, and then Narada heard this voice and looked at Kayadu, and she was sleeping. Then he realized, where is this voice coming from? And then he found that it was from the womb. The child was responding. So that's why one of the things very important, they say, all pregnant women, Amma says this, right? When they are really pregnant, they should be carefully treated. And not only that, they should have a nice place to live. They should not go through ups and downs in their lives. Why? Because the child will be affected. And they should listen only to spiritual either songs or lectures and all these things. And the mothers should not be watching movies. So that is another thing, because that determines the culture of the baby that is going to be born. So at the very young age itself, when the child is in the womb of the mother, this shows that you can catch them and train them and spiritually inculcate those values in their lives. So by the mothers doing all these spiritual practices, and that will definitely affect the child's life. And as you see, you might have been seeing the daily webcast, right? And there are so many children in Amrita Puri. you see daily, every day. And Amma, very casually one time she said, when one of the devotees asked, where did these children come from? So Amma said, oh, I gave them apple to their mothers when they were pregnant. But those mothers not only were given apples, but they lived in the ashram atmosphere while they were pregnant. And so the children have imbibed these spiritual values. And you see now that how beautifully they talk about spiritual principles, about spiritual values, and how they apply in their daily lives, and how they talk about Bhagavad Gita like Pandits. And they have just even, it doesn't matter. You look at the children who are from the West. One is from New York, the another one is from Paris in France. And the barrier of the language does not matter. And if you look at that Amritavarshini speaking Sanskrit, if you just hear that, you will never guess that she was born in France. So where did she get it from? So that's why saying the spiritual samskara has to be given at a very young age. And when that samskara goes into the children, that samskara remains with them. And as they grow up, what happens is they will become spiritual also. And some of the people who had this doubt, they always used to tell me that our children, when they come, they don't listen. They just sit there, they get bored, they do something else, and they just keep playing or something like that. Look at these kids who are sitting here. They came when they were young. And why are they sitting here? They could have gone with some girls or boys, and they could have had a party. It was because they have been with Amma for so long. And that spiritual samskara has been imprinted in their mind. And it was why? Because in spite of all the oppositions and all the problems, you have brought them here to be in Amma's presence, and they have imbibed that spiritual values even if they did not want to. It just went inside them. And that has made them into a human being who is so much useful for the society. Just think about them. What would they do if they did not have spiritual values? They will be going out, drinking, killing a few people or fighting. So, and wrecking their cars, killing other people or killing themselves. And that's what youngsters do, right? And so, but whereas these people are sitting here and doing something very useful for the society. So we can see the transformation. So this, even in spite of their, whether they like it or not, the fact that you brought them here and they were listening, and of course as they kept on listening, something went into them. And I remember one of the parents who used to complain, saying that their child, he would come and he would just be sitting and looking down, and he would be just drawing something or doing something. And one day when I asked a question to the generally, first I asked the parents. And many times I had noted that the parents were asleep, but he was listening. The child was listening. It did not seem like as he was listening, but he was just pretending as he was playing, but he was listening all the time. And when I asked this question, nobody answered except that young, like 12-year-old. He answered the question correctly. How did he do that? Because even though he was pretending not to listen, he did. And Amma said, some of the youngsters, Amma would have said that, even if they ventured out into the world, they go out into the world and taste all those experiences, but after some time they realize that there is nothing. Nothing, it is just zero out. The so-called pleasures will never satisfy you. And once they understand that, they naturally, after when they are 30 or when they are 25 to 30 or 30 to 40, they come back to the ashram. So there have been many youngsters who have come back to Amma like that. So we have to understand, as the scriptures say, that when we talk about spiritual values and give those spiritual values to our children, it's very important. And they will imbibe it, no matter whether they are listening or not listening. They will get it, and someday or the other. We do not know when. And I've seen this, I've heard from some of the youngsters. They said, we did not understand the value of what Amma said. But suddenly, when we were like 30 and we were in complete, utter confusion, then something rang a bell, which Amma said at that time. So I really remembered what Amma said, and then I practiced it. So it was at that moment of crisis in their life. So it will help them one day or the other. So let's continue to give these spiritual values to our children. And not only that, the most important thing is also, as Amma says, we can't just tell them, you have to do this, you have to do that. We also have to practice in our lives, because they are also observing us. It's just like the story that Amma said. You remember the nightclub story? When the father told the children, his young son, he called him, and he was getting of age. So he called him and said, "Son, you should not go out to nightclubs." So the son asked him, why shouldn't I go? So the father said, "You will see things that you are not supposed to see." And a couple of months later, the son came home and told the father, "Dad, I went to the nightclub." And the father got so angry and shouted at him, "I told you 1,000 times not to go there. And I have told umpteen number of times, but you did not listen to me. And now, tell me, what did you see?" So he said, "I saw you, Father, there." So we have to, in one sense, also put it into practice. So it's not enough we keep telling our children, because they also learn and they assess us at the same time. And if we do not practice it, they are not going to practice in their lives also. But if you do that, definitely, as Prahlada says, you don't even want moksha. You don't want liberation, because everything has come to you. The moment, that's why they saying, the moment you start practicing, Amma says this, the moment you start practicing devotion, you start getting fulfilled completely. You don't need anything. Why? Because all your desires disappear. And all the other things, the worldly things, have absolutely no value. So you don't need them. And in one sense, you get rid of them just like that, so easily. So that is the greatest blessings all of us have, that we have our devotion to Amma, through which we know what is the most valuable thing in life. And let us continue to do that service to Amma and make our life useful, not only to Amma but to others. Because Amma is not doing anything for herself. Whatever we do, it will benefit the society, directly or indirectly. So every penny we give to Amma, Amma is not traveling in a private jet. Amma is not sleeping in 5-star hotels or spending time vacation in Hawaii or all these things. She's every day, she's working hard. Why? Because whatever she gets, she's just giving it up for the benefit of society. So let's follow her example And may our lives become more and more valuable to ourselves and to the society. Om Amriteshwari Namah. अमृतरूपिणि मृदुसुभाषिणि अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
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 अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
जनकनन्दिनि जननिरञ्जिनि गणिविनाशिनि वन्दनम्
जनकनन्दिनि जननिरञ्जिनि गणिविनाशिनि वन्दनम्
जनकनन्दिनि जननिरञ्जिनि जनिविनाशिनि वन्दनम्
जनकनन्दिनि जननिरञ्जिनि गणिविनाशिनि वन्दनम्
सकलसुरमुनि विधिनिषेविनि सुखन श्यामलमालिनि सुखन श्यामलमालिनि सकलसुरमुनि विधिनिषेविनि
सुखन श्यामलमालिनि सुखन श्यामलमालिनि
अमृतरूपिणि
मृदुसुभाषिणि अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अमृतरूपिणि मृदुसुभाषिणि
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
प्रकृतिकारिणि दुरिदवारिणि प्रणदरक्षरि वन्दनम्
प्रकृतिकारिणि दुरितवारिणि प्रणरक्षति वन्दनम्
प्रकृतिकारिणि दुरिदवारिणि प्रणदरक्षरि वन्दनम्
प्रकृतिकारिणि दुरितवारिणि प्रणरक्षति वन्दनम्
अमृतवाहिनि जय महेश्वरि शिवकुडुम्बिनि वन्दनम् शिवकुडुम्बिनि वन्दनम्
अमृतवाहिनि जय महेश्वरि शिवकुटुम्बिनि वन्दनम् शिवकुटुम्बिनि वन्दनम्
अमृतरूपिणी मृदुसुभाषिणि
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अमृतरूपिणि
मृदुसुभाषिनि अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
अमृते वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
अभयदायिनि वन्दनम्
पासाङ्कुशधर पाप विनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
पासाङ्कुशधर पाप विनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
पासाङ्कुशधर पाप विनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
कुशधर पाप विनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुज निलया श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुज निलया श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
पाशाङ्कुशधर
पाप विनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुज निलया श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
पीताम्बरधर बीदि विभञ्जन चारुकलेवर विधिवन्द्या
पीताम्बरधर बीदि विभञ्जन चारुकलेवर विधिवन्द्या
पीताम्बरधर बीदि विभञ्जन चारुकलेवर विधिवन्द्या
पीताम्बरधर विधिनिभञ्जन चारुकलेवर विधिवन्द्या
हेरम्बा सुखशान्तिविदायक नीरजलोचन शिव सरदा
हेरम्बा सुखशान्तिविदायक नीरजलोचन शिव सरदा पाशाङ्कुशधर पापविनाशन पाहिदयामय गणनाथा श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुजनिलय श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
त्राहि परात्पर भूरि कृपाकर मादङ्गानत हृदयेशा
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 रक्ष गणेश्वर विघ्न विनाशक सद्गतिदायक गणनादा
रक्ष गणेश्वर विघ्नविनाशक सद्गतिदायक गणनाथा पाशाङ्कुशधर पापविनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुजनिलय श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
पाशाङ्कुशधर पापविनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
कुशधर पापविनाशन पाहि दयामय गणनाथा
श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुजनिलया श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
श्रीकर जय प्रणवाम्बुजनिलय श्री शिवतनया सुरसेव्या
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 नन्दकुमार वन्दितरूप वृन्दावनमाला मोहन मुरली गानविलोल गोपी हृदयेश
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 शाम 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 राधे शाम 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 राधे शाम 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 राधे शाम शाम शाम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
दानव दैत्य विनाशन माधव रास विलोलुप देवा
दानव दैत्य विनाशन माधव रास विलोलुप देवा
नारद दुंबुरु सेविद बाद नारायण शरण
नारद तुम्बुरु सेवित पादा नारायण शरणम्
नारद तुम्बुरु सेविद पाद नारायण शरण
नारद तुम्बुरु सेवित पादा नारायण शरणम्
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
जन्म जरा मृति संकट वर्जित संगत सुखकर शौर्य
जन्म जरा मृत संकट वर्जित संतत सुख कर शौर्य
जन्म जरा मृति संकट वर्जित संगत सुखकर शौर्य
जन्म जरा मृत संकट वर्जित संतत सुख कर शौर्य
विविधाभरण विमंडित गाता कुंजरागिल हृदया
विविधाभरण विमंडित गात्रा विविधाखिल हृदया
विविधाभरण विमंडित गात्रा विविधाखिल हृदया
विविधाभरण विमंडित गात्रा विविधाखिल हृदया
विविधाखिल हृदया राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे भवतर वारण नगवर धारण मदहर मुरहर कृष्णा
भवतर वारण नगवर धारण मदहर मुरहर कृष्णा
भावा भाव विलक्षण माया काला भूषण भगवन्
भावा भाव विलक्षण माया जाल विमोक्षण भगवन्
भावा भाव विलक्षण माया जाल विमोक्षण भगवन्
भावा भाव विलक्षण माया जाल विमोक्षण भगवन्
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
कालपते कमलाधिपते सुरपालपते पशुजालपते
कालपते कमलाधिपते सुरपालपते पशुजालपते
भूमिपते भुवनाधिपते जय साधुपते सकलाधिपते
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 श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी।
पीदवसन वैजयन्ती माला,
पीदवसन वैजयन्ती माला,
पीदवसन वैजयन्ती माला,
पीदवसन वैजयन्ती माला,
चाम भरण तनु नयन विशाला, चाम भरण तनु नयन विशाला, जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी,
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी।
पीद मुकुट कस सारंग सोहे,
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 सीतारामणि रघुमन मोहे,
सीतारामणि रघुमन मोहे,
नारद शारद मंगल गावे,
नारद शारद मंगल गावे,
नारद शारद मंगल गावे,
नारद शारद मंगल गावे।
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा।
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी,
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी,
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी,
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी।
शत्रुघ्न हो जय लक्ष्मण भरता,
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 आरती करु कौसल्या माता,
आरती करु कौसल्या माता,
आरती करु कौसल्या माता,
आरती करु कौसल्या माता,
षण्मुख चरण सखे हनुवीरा,
सन्मुख चरण सखे हनुवीरा,
सम्मुख चरण सखे हनुवीरा,
सन्मुख चरण सखे हनुवीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा,
हरि हरि हे गुण राज गंभीरा।
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Jai Rama, Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Jai Rama, Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
जय जय राम
Jaya Jaya Rama.
जगदधि राम
Jagadi Rama.
जगदेव राम
Jaya Jaya Rama.
जानकी राम
Janaki Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Jai Rama, Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Jai Rama, Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jaya Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
Shri Rama, Jaya Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama.
जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी
Jaya Jaya, Bharati Rama Tumhari.
जय जय आरती जय जय आरती जय जय आरती राम तुम्हारी
Jaya Jaya, Bharati Jaya Jaya, Bharati Jaya Jaya, Bharati Rama Tumhari.
अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलम् प्रणमदा मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलम् भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलम् सुकृतिना विकाश्रये मङ्गलम् अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलम् प्रणमदा मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलम् भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलम् सुकृतिना विकाश्रये
ഹൃദയേശ്വരീ മംഗളം ഹൃദിലസ തേജോർമയീ മംഗളം മൃദുഭാഷിണീ മംഗളം വിജയദാ പ്രേമാകൃതേ മംഗളം വിജയദാ പ്രേമാകൃതേ മംഗളം വിജയദാ പ്രേമാകൃതേ മംഗളം. ജഗജനനി വന്ദേ അമൃതാനന്ദമയി മംഗളഹാരതി മാതൃഭവാനി അമൃതാനന്ദമയി അമൃതാനന്ദമയി മംഗളകാരി വന്ദേ ജനനീ അമൃതാനന്ദമയി മാതാമൃതാനന്ദമയി സകലാഗമ നിഗമാദിഷു ചരിതേ അമൃതാനന്ദമയി നിഖിലാനയന ജനനീ വന്ദേ അമൃതാനന്ദമയി മാതാമൃതാനന്ദമയി പ്രേമരസാമൃത വശ്യ सदा देवी अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी परिदोद्धार निरंतर हृदये अमृतानंदमयी परमहंस पद निलये देवी अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी हे जननी जनि मरण निवारिणि अमृतानंदमयी जन परिपालिनी जयदा अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी सुरजन पूजित जय जगदम्बा अमृतानंदमयी सहज समाधि धन्ये देवी अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी ओम जय जय जगजननी वंदे अमृतानंदमयी मंगल आरती माधव भवानी अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी माता अमृतानंदमयी जय बोलो सद्गुरु माता अमृतानंदमयी देवी की असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय ओम शांति 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 ओम लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु ओम शांति 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 ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम।